Mocap. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance introduced the most meta character in fighting game history, a motion capture actor who somehow became a playable fighter. Mocap wears a full mocap suit covered in tracking markers and fights using martial arts moves, borrowed from other characters because that's literally his job. He's not a ninja, demon, or god. He's just Carlos Pesina, the actual motion capture artist who worked on the game, turned into a character as an inside joke. The developers thought it would be funny to make their mocap guy canon, so they gave him a backstory about being a martial arts teacher who got recruited by Cage. Fighting as mocap means you're playing as the guy who helped create the animations for everyone else in the game. Meat. Mortal Kombat 4 introduced a character that wasn't supposed to exist, a skinless man made entirely of exposed muscle tissue. Meat started as a test model the developers used during production to check hitboxes and animations, basically a walking anatomy diagram. Someone on the team decided this would make a good secret character, so they made him unlockable. He's literally called Meat, a bloody muscle man who just exists. Later games tried to give him lore about being one of Shang Tsung's failed experiments, but originally he was just the team's testing dummy that accidentally became playable. Borai Cho. Legendary Drunken Master appeared in Deadly Alliance, and he fights by weaponizing bodily functions. This guy taught Liu Kang, trained Kun Lao, and mentored some of Earthrealm's greatest warriors. Then you play as him, and he defeats opponents by vomiting on them and breaking wind in their faces. He's a serious character in the lore who served as a crucial resistance figure against Shao Kahn, but his fighting style revolves around getting drunk mid-match and being as disgusting as possible. The same master who shaped Earthrealm's champions literally has a fart attack as one of his special moves. Ferritor. Mortal Kombat X introduced a symbiotic duo that breaks every fighting game character rule. Farah is a small rider who sits on Tor, a massive brute, and they fight as one character who's technically two people. The weird part isn't just the size difference, it's that Farah will also eventually grow into the big one. They're from a realm called Outworld, where this species cycles through these roles throughout their lives. NetherRealm designed their moveset around the partnership. Farah jumps off to attack independently, Tor throws her like a projectile, and they coordinate strikes that wouldn't work if they fought separately. Striker. Mortal Kombat 3 dropped a regular police officer into a tournament filled with ninjas, sorcerers, and gods, then gave him no explanation for why he belongs there. While everyone else shoots fireballs and teleports, Striker has a handgun, riot baton, and flashbang grenades, standard police issue equipment. He's not enhanced, not trained by monks, not chosen by elder gods. Just a cop from the NYPD who survived Shao Kahn's invasion and decided his law enforcement gear would somehow work against interdimensional warlords. The bizarre part is that it does. Striker canonically survives and fights effectively using weapons you could buy at a police supply store. He became a fan favorite precisely because he's so absurdly outmatched, yet refuses to acknowledge it. Dramin. The worst realm in Mortal Kombat lore is the Netherrealm, and Dramin represents what happens when you stay there too long. Deadly Alliance introduced this Oni demon, who's so grotesque he wears an iron mask to hide his face, and he's permanently surrounded by a swarm of flies that follow him everywhere. Before becoming a demon, Dramin was a cruel warlord, but centuries of torture in hell transformed him into a monster who can barely speak and fights with a club literally embedded in his arm. The developers designed him as pure nightmare fuel, rotting flesh, insects crawling over him constantly, and attacks that involve beating opponents with his club arm while flies swarm the screen. Moloch. Deadly Alliance needed a giant enforcer demon, so they created Dramin's buddy Moloch, an Oni who's barely a character and more like a boss monster that somehow became playable. He's massive, carries a ball and chain bigger than most fighters, and has almost no personality or backstory. Moloch exists to be intimidating through size alone, standing almost twice as tall as normal characters and using his weight as a weapon. The developers gave him maybe 3 lines of dialogue total across all his appearances. Xu Hao. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance introduced the most hated character in franchise history, a red dragon cyborg agent who's so universally despised that the developers killed him off in the comics just to make fans happy. Xu Hao infiltrated the Special Forces as a double agent, has cybernetic implants including a glowing heart device on his chest, and fights with generic wrestling moves that made him boring to play. The weird part isn't his design or abilities, it's that NetherRealm actively acknowledged how much everyone hated him and turned it into canon. They had Jax literally rip out his cybernetic heart, and the developers joked about killing him repeatedly.